Okay, these are some of the questions that come from previous exam papers, and the instruction is to factorize. All right, so we're going to start with this three where we have four terms. So when you get a question like that, when you have four terms, what you do first is to group two terms and group the other terms. This doesn't usually work where you group the first two and the last two and then you get a common factor after grouping them. So if it doesn't work, then you can group first and third, third and fourth. You can even group the first one and the last one and group together the middle one. So your grouping should be in such a way that after you take out a common factor, you get a common factor in a bracket. All right. What do I mean by that? Okay, you will see. So first we group two terms and two terms. So then we have two brackets. So you have to group them such that you have a common factor. So you don't just group for the sake of grouping. You will see with these first two terms, there's a common factor b squared. We can divide b squared into b squared. We can divide b squared into b cubed. So that means in this first bracket, b squared is our common factor. All right. So 2ab squared divided by b squared, that would be 2a. And b cubed divided by b squared will be b. Remember, back to laws of exponents, this is going to be 3 minus 1 minus 2, hence we have a 1 there. And then plus, what is a common factor in this second bracket? That is a b. B can be divided into b squared and b can be divided into a b. So we take out a b out as a common factor that side, and then b squared divided by b is going to be b. 2 minus a 1 is a 1 minus 2ab divided by b, we will be left with 2a. So this grouping, after taking out the first common factor, should be in such a way that what's inside the brackets is the same. So in our case, we have positive 2a minus b. We have positive b minus 2a. So they don't look the same, but they look similar. The only difference is the signs. While 2a is positive this side, it's negative on the second bracket. And while b is negative on the first bracket, it's positive on the second bracket. We can make this bracket have the same signs as the first bracket by taking out a negative as a common factor. All right, let's do that. So the first one there, we have b squared 2a minus a b. So we're going to take out a negative as a common factor so that the signs inside the brackets change. So that means this positive here then becomes a negative b. So we just took out the negative as a common factor. As soon as you do that, what's negative inside the bracket becomes positive, and what's positive becomes negative. So we have negative 2a, it now becomes positive 2a. And our b was positive, but because we took out a negative out as a common factor, it now becomes a negative. All right. So now we have brackets that look exactly the same. Now we have a common factor. And this common factor is bracket 2a minus b. So this whole term, b squared into 2a minus b divided by 2a minus b, the bracket will cancel and then we're going to be left with b squared minus this whole term divided by 2a minus b, we will be left with a b. Even though that looks simplified, it's still not fully simplified. The problem with it is that we still have a common factor in that second bracket. There's a common factor, which is a b. There's a common factor b in b squared and a common factor b in a b. So we're going to take out that common factor b from the second bracket. So then this will be equals to 2a minus a b. We take out a b as a common factor out of there. Then we're going to be left with b squared divided by b. It's going to be b minus b divided by b. Anything divided by itself will be a 1. And that will be your answer. So you have to simplify as far as possible. You never leave anything that still has a common factor. Remember, for as long as you see a common factor, then your solution is not simplified enough. Hence, we had to take out a b there as a common factor. All right. Number 2, with number 2, I think I will also try to group the first 2 and the last 2. If it doesn't work, then we will regroup. Okay, so there is no common factor on the first bracket, so I'm going to let it be. On the second bracket, there is a common factor, which is a y. Y divided by y is 1. Xy divided by y will be minus x. Notice again, same story again. We come across the same problem. The bracket look almost the same, but different signs. X is positive, this side negative. 1 is negative that side, but positive. So we're just going to take out negative out as a common factor so that we have the brackets being the same. So x minus 1, we're taking out a negative as a common factor here, making this positive and negative, and immediately what used to be negative in the bracket is going to be positive. So x was negative, we want it to be positive, now it becomes a positive. Y was positive and now it becomes a negative. The one was positive, sorry, and now it becomes a negative. All right, so now those brackets look exactly the same. So we're going to have x minus 1 out as a common factor because that is a bracket that is the same in two terms. So x minus 1 divided by x minus 1 will then be a 1. Anything divided by itself is a 1 minus this whole term divided by x minus 1 will leave us with a y. We are happy. We can't simplify it further than that. All right. And then number 3, still two terms. So I'm still going to try my luck. Group the first 2 and the last 2. If it doesn't work, come back and regroup. All right. So, but this looks exactly the same as this one. It's just that now the first term is the last term and the last term is the second term. Then that means the answer is going to be the same. So I will leave you to do that one for yourself. It looks exactly the same. This was in one question paper and this was in the following year's question paper. You will see that they had just swapped the terms. The first term was the second term on the other one, and the second term was the first term on the other one. Okay, let's do this one then. Okay, so every time you have to factorize something, an expression that has a fraction like that one there, you'll see we have a fraction 27 over x squared. Take the denominator, which is x squared, and multiply everywhere by it. When you see a fraction, you take a denominator and you multiply everywhere by it. If it was more than one fraction, we're going to look at the lowest common denominator and multiply everywhere by it. So now we're going to say our denominator is x squared. So we take 3, we multiply it by x squared minus 27 over x squared. We also multiply it by x squared. So the reason why we do that is to get rid of the denominator. So now you took the denominator and multiplied by itself, it disappears, it will cancel. Whereas in this case, we're going to have 3 times x squared will give us 3x squared minus a 27. And then we still can't leave it as that because there's a common factor there. You can divide a 3 into 3. You can divide a 3 into 27. So if we take out 3 out as a common factor, we're going to have 3x squared divided by 3 will be x squared. Minus 27 divided by 3 is a 9. And you would think that we've worked so hard and this is done. No, it's still not factorized fully because immediately now we realize, but wait a minute, this is a difference of 2 squared. X squared is a square, 9 is a square because we know it's 3 squared. So we need to factorize that further. So we're going to have 3. We know factorization of difference of 2 squares from the previous video will be the square root of x squared, which is x, minus the square root of 9, which is that 3. And then we're going to have another bracket that is now x plus 3. And it's simple enough. It's fully factorized. 3 into x minus 3 into x plus 3. Great. Number 4, this is a difference of 2 cubes. One can be anything. One can be a square, one can be a cube, anything we want it to be. So let's first factorize that cubes. So cube root of x cubed will be x. So in this case, our a is x, and a cube root of 1 is a 1. So this is also discussed in the previous video. If you didn't watch it, please go and watch it and come back to this one. Then we're going to say x squared, which is x squared, plus x times 1, which is x, plus 1 squared, which is 1. You will understand what just happened there if you watch the previous video. And then our denominator is x squared plus x plus 1. See the beauty of recognizing the difference of 2 cubes. Immediately now, the denominator is equals to exactly what's in the bracket there. And then they cancel, leaving our answer being equals to x minus 1. Right? And then number 5 then, what can we do with that one? I can group a first two and then take a out as a common factor. The problem is that then the last two won't have a common factor, so the grouping doesn't work. I can't group a with a c, there's no common factor. I cannot group a squared with 100c squared, there's no common factor. So there isn't a way of creating two brackets in such a way that both of them will have a common factor. So the grouping doesn't work in this case. But I do recognize that this is a multiplication of some bracket. So this could have been two brackets multiplied together. So it would be an A and an A. If I separate them, A times A is A squared. Then for B, it's going to be B and a B. So B times a B is B squared. We know that if it's a negative and the positive, this is going to be negative, negative. All right. So A times minus B is minus AB. Minus B times A is minus AB. So minus AB minus AB will then be minus 2AB. All right. So we are happy with this. And then we recognize, but this is the same bracket just two times. So we can just represent it then as AB squared. That squared is the same as saying A minus B times A minus B. A minus B squared. And then we still have 100 C squared. And then we realize that now we have a difference of two squares. There's a square, 100 is 10 square, and there's a square. So this is definitely a difference of two squares. So what are we going to have? The square root of A minus B squared is A minus B. A minus B. And then we have minus the square root of 100 is a 10. And the square root of C squared is a C. Then the other bracket is going to be exactly the same with A plus. A minus B plus 10C. And we are happy. Okay, let's look at this one. There's a common factor. We always start with a common factor. There's a common factor x there. There's a common factor x there. So we're first going to take out our common factor. So 4x divided by x will be 4 minus x cubed divided by x is going to be x squared. Difference of two squares again. 4 is a square because it's 2 squared and then there's a square. So that means we're going to have two brackets. Square root of 4 is 2. We will have minus square root of x squared will be an x. And the other bracket will be exactly the same thing, but with a plus. That was simple. Lastly, on this page, okay, this has already been grouped, but now look at this. Our R is positive, R is negative there. Our S is negative, S is positive there. So we're going to try to make this look the same as this one. So that means then we are required to take a negative out as a common factor. The grouping has already been done. R minus S. If I take out negative as a common factor, what's going to happen? Negative R divided by negative is going to be positive R. And a positive S divided by negative is going to be negative S. And then now the brackets look the same. So I'm going to take out R minus S out as a common factor. And then the other bracket will be t squared r minus s divided by r minus squared. We will be left with t squared minus r minus s divided by r minus s. Anything divided by itself is a 1. But notice that's a difference of two squares because 1 can be anything. All right. So we're not done factorizing. We still have to factorize that difference of two squares. So we have r minus s. Then we're going to have square root of t squared is a t minus the square root of 1 is a 1. And the other bracket is going to be the same with a positive or a plus. Okay, then following the next video, we're going to factorize trinomials. And then we would have been done with a series of a factorization for grade 10.